I think it's happened to all of us at some point. You're out in public, hanging out, having fun, and then you go to take a selfie or you look at yourself in the mirror and you realize that you have a booger hanging out of your nose. Now, not only is this super embarrassing, but it's also super irritating because nobody told you that you had this thing going on. So you look at your friends and your family like, what the heck? Now, I think we have a moral obligation to tell somebody that they have a booger hanging out of their nose before they go on and make a fool of themselves to everybody else. But how often have I seen a friend with a booger in their nose and I didn't say anything? How often have you seen a friend or a family member with a booger hanging out of their nose and never said anything, or food in their teeth or something like that? It's such a simple fix, but why don't you speak up? Maybe you don't actually care about this person, but I think most of the time it's a little awkward and you don't want to make them uncomfortable. Now, you may think you're doing the right thing. Believe me, I have as well. But how many people do you actually think are grateful that you didn't say anything? I don't think many people are. Most people would rather you tell them the truth than to pretend like everything's fine because you don't want to make them uncomfortable. Now, pointing out the booger in someone's nose or the food in their teeth is one thing, but sharing the gospel is another. But I believe the same principle applies. We should share the uncomfortable truth with those that we care about. And as Christians, we should care about everybody. Now, what uncomfortable truth am I talking about today? It's the truth about Jesus. Now, the good news about Jesus is known as the gospel. And it starts off with really bad news, that we're all sinners. Every single one of us is a sinner. We do things and say things that fall short of God's expectation of us and his desire for how we should live. And our sin distances us from God. It causes separation between us and our Creator. So God has to judge sin. He has to punish wickedness. He has to punish the evil that we do. But we know John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So Jesus came, wrapped himself in human flesh, died the death that we deserve. He died so that we could live eternally and have abundant life that starts now and lasts forever. That's pretty good news. That we can avoid the punishment for our own sins, that we can avoid eternal separation from God in hell, and instead we can have eternal life with God in his kingdom. But what do we have to do to experience that reality? Well, we have to place our entire trust. We have to fully believe in Jesus and what he did for us on the cross. It almost sounds too good to be true. But let me read Romans 10:13. It says, "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. How then can they call on one they have not believed in? How can they believe in one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they're sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news." Now, God could do some incredible things, but for the most part, people aren't just going to be saved unless Christians like you and I go and tell them about Jesus. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But it's also necessary, because otherwise we have blood on our hands. Sharing the gospel isn't just for pastors or for missionaries or for people who have microphones and a platform. No, sharing the gospel is for me. Sharing the gospel is for you. It's actually a command that we go and tell this world the truth. So take a moment and think about the people in your life, your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors. Who needs to get saved? Who needs Jesus? They're not going to know unless someone like you comes along and tells them. And you might be like, I've tried. It's no use. But if you really love them, you wouldn't give up on them. Keep having those conversations and keep praying that God would soften their heart. There are so many people out there. Let's work together to make heaven crowded.